Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Optimism Show. Today we have Zeugh. Welcome, Zeugh.
Hey, Kris. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, it was a pleasure having you here actually today, and I'm really looking forward to the topics that we're gonna cover, especially regarding governance, DAOs, security, etc., etc. But before we hop into the topics, in like a few sentences, could you just give us like a short introduction about yourself and who you really are? Because you're so many things working with different companies, different projects. So I'd rather have you do it the best.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm Zeugh. I'm from Brazil. Uh, very much of a DAO aficionado. Been playing with Juicebox DAO on the Juicebox protocol since 2021, and currently working with Blockful on governance improvements. Let's say like governance security research, some new tools here and there for how we might change the way we're governing DAOs. And yeah, thinking about DAOs and how to make them into a, a better ecosystem for us to move forward.
Yeah, it's actually quite a big topic, and with DAOs, especially nowadays, on one side it looks like okay, we have figured out something, we're on track, but then so many hurdles start coming up and it doesn't really work as if imagined in theory. So would love to touch on you like because I know you did quite some research when it comes to plutocratic, non-plutocratic systems and similar. And nowadays, if we see it, even most of the famous DAOs, and I know you wrote extensively on this, a lot of the most famous DAOs are like one token, one vote, which really gives power to the people who just have the most amount of tokens. But that kind of completely skews the governance in the DAO. So I would love to hear like your thoughts of why do you think that DAOs, even though this has been a topic of discussion for like the past 2, 3, 4 years, why are most DAOs even still stuck in these plutocratic systems where it's just an endless loop? And like what is the thing mostly challenging DAOs?
I'm not sure if I would say that DAOs are necessarily like stuck on a plutocratic, because it's not, you're not stuck if you're not trying to get out, right? There's pros and cons in different type of governance designs and plutocratic, like shareholder governance, which is basically what we use. Of course, it's not shares because it like lots of little rules and differences, but in a direct perspective, this shareholder plutocratic governance is is efficient for like investment DAOs, for example. It's an interesting way, and it it's kind of where this comes from, right? We're looking at DAOs as companies where we believe in them and we're putting money here and there. Of course, lots of details on how you don't necessarily go to the revenue, just choosing how that will be put. There's way more openness, way more transparency, but I mean, it's also very hard to change once you're already there, right? How do you get into a room with enough people to pass any proposal on one of the major DAOs today? That's a room of 10 people, let's say, because that's what it takes on most of the space today. If you have 10 of the top delegates who are getting mostly anything through, and you say, hey, I want to make a change in the system where the 10 of you are actually going to lose your power to pass what you want. It might not be 10, it might be 20, 50, 100, but still, you have to convince the people who will lose the power to say yes. So it needs to be very, very well structured, very clear win. And it's hard to make that a clear win when even in that current structure, the smallest holders are not even delegating, right? Most token holders are just like trading on the platforms, not holding any delegation, not making any delegation, not being even aware there's a governance many times, right? There's a big proposal going through. So I think plutocratic had its limitations, but on DAOs where it's well established, it kind of the. I really like optimism approach on this of having like the two separate powers. I'm not really sure how much of the badge holder, like citizen logic, stands like the test of time. It has to evolve, and optimism is constantly evolving the governance. So big fan of the work there. But I think there's a nice balance between like plutocratic and like, let's say, reputational or like representative, whatever it is that can work in this type of context. There's of course like a million different other types, right? Like we can be looking pure reputational. We can be looking one person, one vote. We can be looking any type of what says you have power or not. Like people with blue eyes have extra voting power on a rainy day. Make that a chain link hackathon and win a prize. And like those that's the beauty for me, that we're starting to experiment, right? But we've been like, what, hasn't been 10 years that DAOs are around, and we're getting good in a certain area of how do we learn to bring this very obvious type of first governance type on chain, understood, automated, better tools. What is lacking? How do we advance here? But having it here on chain, having that happening in this flexible environment, an experimental environment, allows for you to have the chance to test all those things. There's no city in the world that's ever going to say blue people vote more when it rains. But there might be a DAO. There just might be a DAO. And yeah, that's a few thoughts on how we can see different types of governance here. But I'm not fully against plutocratic. I just think it shouldn't be seen as the only option. It's either democratic or plutocratic. Like that's a no starter.
No, but that's actually an excellent point over there, because even if you think like even DAOs in the beginning started as an experiment, so just as most things in crypto, right, on blockchain, everything's just a massive experiment that's getting bigger. So in the end, why does it have to be only democratic or plutocratic? But I'm interested also, like, for example, since you've been so long in DAOs and working with the DAOs ecosystems and grants and similar, if you have to redesign DAOs and make them your own way, what would you change and how would that look like? Like, I'm really curious from that perspective.
That answer has changed many times over time. I think that recently I've been having thoughts of go back to Moloch. Like, yeah, Compound's great, like this governance model that we're using, but just having the vision of treasury shares and vote shares, or however you call it in any iteration of the system, like just understanding that there can be two houses. I like the idea of having multiple houses of voters with different balances, right? I think systems of checks and balances are not so much of a catchphrase because for no reason. Like, it's good to have different bodies of governance that are watching each other. I think that getting the financial power in is essential. So I would not get rid 100% of the plutocratic perspective of put money, get voice. I think put money, get voice is reasonable to a balance. I think put work, get voice is way underused nowadays. So like contributors getting paid in tokens, which they have to sell to get the money, else they're working for free. They're working just for voice. That does not make sense for me. So I think you're getting paid and you're getting tokens that let you have actionable power, or tokens or reputation, or however the system you use. I'm not much a believer that we have one tool to rule them all or anything, like I don't really care what the tooling that goes in, as long as it does what is needed. If you're going to use like any, like we're going Moloch or we're going uh, open Zeppelin. Like, yeah, both are good, just as long as you can fine tune them to do what you need. What else do I think that is important? Well, it depends then on the type of the DAO. I think that anything that has, I'm a big fan of things with revenue. I think that people are constantly crazy thinking about internet money goes up and that pays the bills forever. Like, I like things with revenue. You do something for someone, you made their lives better, and they return some value because of what you did to improve their lives, right? That's a good system. And I think those people who are returning value, who are paying for a service, should also have voice, or at least voice on who has voice. Doesn't have to be the same governance. Like maybe they are the balance of pointing between work and capital power, the what you get for doing stuff, what you get for investing, and what a consumer is a different type of investor in a sense, especially in an early business, right? Those are elements that I find quite interesting to have in governance. I really would like to see more discussion-based governance, to see governance that is not merely I go vote. We have AI being more and more active, and it's interesting for me to see DAOs that are an AI. The AI is the DAO. That's cool. The AI votes in the DAO. That's fun. We did it last year in the before any agents were coming around. We had our AI delegates voting. But I'm really looking forward to a point where multiple agents are coexisting with us on the discussion and being able to see my opinion, my perspective, my alignments, the digital twin dream, my digital twin there in the governance with me telling me, hey, you should really pay attention to those points here. Like, and they know what I think, and they help me tailor my perspective.
Do you think, like, when it comes to DAOs, especially as you mentioned, like having AI DAOs and stuff, what do you think on the thought, or like the opinion that has been also circulating around, that we might not even be looking at AI agents as to what they might actually contribute, but we're just looking at them as a way to duplicate ourselves or to outsource some of the things that we just don't want to do, like voting or delegation or stuff like that. Like, where do you see? I'm curious, like, where do you see, when it comes to DAOs, AI agents contributing the most and actually making the most difference?
I like to imagine agents that are doing all those tasks we don't want to do, but that's not specific only like to voting, right? I think there is answering questions of newcomers, right? Like being on the chat, answering the same question 25 times a day. That's not that far, and also not that cruel to the agent, right? Like, because there's a bunch of ethics here to have, like, be ethical with your agents. I don't know if we're gonna care about that soon or not, but maybe we should. Uh, the I think that's like a lot of interface change. Like, we're humans, we're evolving for a long time as society, as species, to talk with other humans. Uh, 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 for a developer, going through a documentation page to understand an API or a code base and work through it makes a lot of sense. For a customer of my business that got a voice, he gets to be heard because they're part of the system as a whole. They have to go through the docs to use their voice. I don't think that using your voice should need docs that much. So the interface of chatting with an AI agent and getting that turned into action. I think it's Nani, the AI chat that makes transactions for you or something like this. Nani OS, made by Ross. It's an interesting perspective of how I see very, very efficient use of AI in the space. I think also being elected for specific central roles, like an AI that, like voting for prompts, because we already vote for transactions, right? So electing to approve a prompt is also something that sounds very interesting to me. For what? Not sure what's the most useful, but from treasury management to new pool creation and what type of risk we want to take, like that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point over there. And also because you're really, right now, you're really focused on the security when it comes to governance and DAOs and similar. Um, do you think because the way we have AI right now and it's all the trend and everything, but when it comes to DAOs and you said voting for prompts and actually seeing the direction where it goes and everything other than just transactions, what are the things that you see will start to be needed maybe in the security of DAOs in the coming years, just as those things shift and we have more and more AI delegates, for example, in DAOs, and some things that everyone in DAOs, but regardless if they're a participant or they're working with the DAOs, should keep in mind in the coming years.
I think I froze for a second here. I think you're asking about AI and governance security, right? And what's the point where they meet?
Even I would say let me elaborate a bit more on that. Yes, of course, it's what I meant more in governance security is also on the direction of the DAO. What kind of impact could it have over there for a start? And what are some other things other than AI in general that at this moment are really crucial for DAO security, for example, that a lot of people might not even be looking at?
I think that regarding AI, the security part is one of the reasons why we stopped our AI delegates development earlier this year and last year. It's still not. We weren't comfortable in scaling what we were building to be a top delegate of a DAO yet. So we're improving our understanding of governance security, and it's up that we found out the whole ecosystem needs to improve their understanding of governance security. I think looking at security in general, it's been an exciting cycle for this, especially with Vitalik's DAC perspective and all the Zeugh DAC centric year that we had. Specifically on DAO governance, putting AI a little bit aside, we just really are not looking. Earlier, in March last year, we found this gap on ENS DAO that you could have drain their treasury. If you had about $50 million in understanding of the system, you could have drained 140. We're not in a system where there is a lack of people with $50 million. We're not in an ecosystem where there's a lack of people with an interest of making a quick 3x on $50 million or with the knowledge to try and disappear after. So there's no, ENS is not alone at this, right? If you look at the data on the right spots, on the right ways, we have a lack of understanding of what keeps our DAOs safe. We think having good good delegates is enough, a delegate incentive program, increase our voting supply. That's all very important, but there's so many ways to benefit from doing something malicious to a DAO. We've been working on this framework called an anti-capture framework, and we've been seeing like so many different vectors in so many different DAOs, and it's like people are not paying enough attention. People are not giving their own organizations that they're spending years building, and they want to make the next big growth and make the next big move to have, I don't know how many 10x amount of devs and total value locked and everything. But and many times the king is naked, right? It's right there for the taking. It's a hard topic to comment because I have on top of my mind like a few cases that we are working with right now and we're solving that they were not safe and now they are. And we're still like pre-publishing the post-mortem, guaranteeing everything is okay. So it's kind of hard like to talk much on what is what without like what should people be looking at. If I tell that and a good person hears, they're gonna look and fix it. If I tell that and someone wants to take advantage, I don't know if I should tell what they should look at. But it's gonna be a good year in that sense.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Like even like actually fixing up those things that we don't necessarily see all the time. But just as you mentioned, like we're in an ecosystem where in the past, like the ENS case, like you could drain 140 million if you have 15 million in the bank. So it's quite an incentive to try and do something for a lot of people that have the know-how or just know that there is some kind of a vulnerability like that. And I would assume in a lot of cases it's not even a technology problem, it's more like a structural problem. Practically DAO architecture problem, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, there's some things like that that I can like be fully open with because we've verified and people are safe from. But there are like things that are configurations on your governor that there's no, the audits are perfect. The governor contract looks beautiful. It's all in place, but you made a design choice to enable or disable a function that could be good to have. Can you change your you vote? Can you change your vote after or not? How does that influence? That's not a vector of attack and of a capital attack such as this type of VNS, but all of those small decisions they compound with each other, right? So when you have like, oh, can you cancel proposals? Can you propose multiple proposals at once? How many time do you need to have your tokens? Do you lock them to vote or you just delegate? All of those, if you get just the right combination of them, none of them is wrong. But this choice here with this other and this other give a possibility to do something, you know? That type of scenario is more common than we realize, you know?
Yeah. It's practically like having the right puzzle pieces, but not putting it together right.
Yeah, and I'm glad that some people that are looking at it maliciously are also not putting it right? But there are good attackers. There are efficient, smart attackers. Like if you look at Humpy, like the guy who's recently made that compound proposal that was like polemic to call it an attack or not, as it always is polemic to call something an attack or not. But like that type of player knows what they're doing, right? And knows how to read a market, knows how to position themselves. Yeah. It's a good chess game, but it's not a game that we can lose many times. We recently, Uniswap published recently about the grant that we got with them to make the review of their governance, and they have a beautiful scenario there, right? Like it's a big governance, central piece of our ecosystem right now. and been for years, and it's well done. But not everyone is as well prepared as Uniswap, right?
Yeah, exactly. Not everyone even has the resources to be that prepared. And in fact, most of the players don't even.
Yeah.
And when it comes, I have two more questions actually. Like one more about security. When it comes to like, because right now, especially pretty much every bull market, we see so many new DAOs popping up. Some just shell DAOs, a lot that are actually trying to do something at one point, but then hit a roadblock and just stop it. When it comes to creating and managing a DAO, and practically also like from the perspective that we just talked from the governance security side, what are some things that the initial DAO creators should keep in mind, especially when creating the DAO to avoid these challenges in the future? Because it certainly isn't something that's also widely covered out there. It has like a simple source of information for a lot of things. It's just so scattered. Like if you were to create a DAO, what are the first things that you'd look at?
Well, I think the first one in this current market would be, do not try to make your governance token a meme coin. Like, are you trying to build something on the long run, or are you trying to make a quick 10x, 100x, whatever? Like, those two things are good. They're both valid things on their own behalf, on their own senses. Like, I'm no one to judge a casino, but maybe a casino distribution of tokens is not the safest thing you want to have for your governance. If you make a distribution that when price goes up and down, it fluctuates like so much, you're going from 1 cent to half a dollar to a half a cent to half a dollar, and like you cannot have a on-chain like executable proposal governance after you do that. First of all those traders that are buying just for fun are forgetting it on their wallets after they bought it big and now it's worth nothing. They're never selling, they're never looking, they forgot about you, and all of that is wasted governance power that leaves you more exposed, right? So if you're launching a DAO as a meme coin, you either like better hold only your own token, because if you have a diversified treasury, right, you there's more reasons for you to be attacked. Like, but if you launch as a meme coin, understand that that's going to limit what you can do long term, how resilient you can be. Second thing is understand if you want to have a DAO, like a on-chain organization with a governance contract, with a treasury on-chain that is moved only by vote, or if you like the idea of a DAO, but you actually want to make a group where people vote and you and 3 other friends move stuff, right? That's that's also okay. Yeah. That does it for most cases. That is most DAOs. A snapshot and a multi-sig, it does it. You can follow the ethics. You can have most of the benefits. You lose resilience of a certain sense, and you win resilience of another sense, right? You're not exposed to a direct attack, because if someone passes a proposal saying, I'll drain your treasury, you say, I will not sign this. And then you don't. And then you're safe. But all the same way, someone can put you in the back of a car, or someone can put you in jail if they are a state government, and get you to do the things they need, right? So there's pros and cons on each side. Are you willing to be the head of the DAO, the owner of the DAO? Then, like, basically making a company there, and that can work too. Like, you're still gonna have to deal with some liability that's different there, but make that decision clearly. Understand pros and cons, and I think one last thing is understand what do you want to govern. I see a lot of people say like, oh, I want to make a DAO about this thing. This is my passion. I fucking love bird watching. I'm going to make Bird Watcher DAO. We're going to raise money and we're going to use the money to make bird watching better. Okay. You govern that money. Okay. What do you do with it? Like, no, everyone just comes and propose whatever they want. Bro, no, don't yeah, maybe do that. Might be fun. But like, I've been finding that more specific focused DAOs are more interesting. Like I'm curious for a chapter now that we are advancing into blockchain speed, right? Mega ETH around the corner. We're gonna be very fast very soon, and we're getting cheaper to use. Like the idea of having I've been saying this for a while. Like I want to sit in a bar and I want to create a juice box to pay for the beer of tonight. And if I'm having fun, if I'm drinking a lot, I might put $50 extra there because I want this to go longer.
Yeah.
And the restaurant can just get the cash out of the system. I don't want someone to get the bill. I don't want everyone to pay around for the others. I don't want to pay my bill, you pay yours. We're all on the table together, 5 friends, and I want to say this is how much I'm putting in. And if we have a free rider, we have a free rider. And that type of dynamic, we're getting to the point where those things are practical. And this is a silly example, but then this can become a weekend trip. This can become a 2-week project. And then this can become a multi-million company. And it's not falling off the same network. It inherits the benefits of Ethereum, but for different use cases, because from mainnet to mega ETH, you have a completely different type of benefits you can use from there. So I'm curious from this future where we have many one use case DAOs, and they become like little federations, like the DAOs of DAOs. OWAP is now like doing the Capital together with Gitcoin and Greenpill, and Capital they just published like the DAO of DAOs. And I like that idea. The idea of like very focused, specific DAOs, not generic ideas like Constitution DAO. We are going to buy the Constitution. Straightforward. This is what we're going to do. We're getting money here. We're going to move it together, and we're going to do this thing.
Yeah, but it's also like much easier for participation in those cases, because right now a lot of people like don't even participate in DAOs because it's like, okay, what are we even doing? Where are we even headed? It's like, okay, as you said, like the Constitution is like, we're raising money. This is what we're using it. That's it. If you want to participate, cool. This is how you participate. If you don't, cool again.
Yeah. And it's like, there are, of course, uses for more complex DAOs, right? Like the Optimism Collective, Arbitrum DAO, Uniswap, ENS. There's a lot of the big ones now, and they're very relevant. They do amazing stuff. But for this type of scenario, I'd love to see things like, if you're looking for something structured, like using Hats protocol or using like Juicebox protocol, any of those systems that allow us to make roles, to make payments, to make things exist on chain and be clearly defined. Here's how it works. Here's what it does. Because once it starts getting big, it's very hard to not fall into abstraction, right? If you don't have the boss, like in a company, you have the boss, and then you have your boss, it has their boss, and everyone knows what they have to do because there's someone that's the one that tells them what to do. If you're opening up, you need how it works to be clearly written somewhere, and no better place than the place where it actually happens. So write it on chain, do a Hats tree, do a Juicebox project, allow things to be smoother by putting a little bit more of hard work in the beginning, setting it up straight, make a RevNet and a Hats tree. Dude, from there, you can make a big organization. Now, do you want to just raise money and do one thing? Make it simple,
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense actually. And it depends, as you said, like it depends really where you even headed and what is your goal with it. And then we have the bigger organizations, the smaller organizations. Zook, I have like one last thing is like, is there anything else? Because right now we covered a few different topics and also like the DAO structures and everything. Is there anything else I should have asked you that maybe we didn't cover by now that would be really cool to cover?
I think that one thing that I've been having my head at and spending quite some time around is on going to this new year of Trump is a president. He's like signaling to crypto as much as he can. He just freed Ross. Like there's a lot of a lot of points, and like I've been big time opposition to many things he or his like party says in the past. Like, I'm not American. I don't care that much about their politics beyond what affects the world, and it does a lot. But it's very interesting for me to see this new regulatory space. Like, things are changing. Now, is it? I inhabit a little spot on my social circles that is in between the people who are like, we have an ally now. We are together with the state. And at the same time, I have a whole other group of friends looking like we are being captured heavily. It's the U.S. government. It's like BlackRock. It's all together. Like, this is like the moment where we have to find out if our resilience works, right? It's from little things like Sony making their own layer 2 on the OP stack and then saying like, no, those contracts don't run here. And someone just saying, oh, well, they do, or mainnet, duh. And like this little thing of understanding how we can keep our new internet free while allowing past enemies that want to ally without compromising our values or freedom, without being tied to someone. I think this is going to be a very exciting year, and DAOs are going to play a very interesting role in that. You know, like it's going to be a curious year. And that comes very like I've been spent last 3 years as a nomad, and I've been to pop-up city to pop-up city, conference to conference, and in those spaces you see, like especially this last year of pop-up cities post Zuzalu, where people were like really trying to think how do we keep those things working, right? What's really the act? What's like, how do we make this defensive? AI is gonna go crazy faster and faster. Crypto is gonna scale more and more. Okay, those things like accelerationism is already happening. The domino effect has started. You don't need to speed up more. It's gonna speed up by itself from now. Now, how do we make it not suck? That's the moment for me of this year, and it's gonna be an interesting one. I'm very excited to see how that plays out with experiments like Juicebox V4, our omni-chain version, is launching around March 2nd. No, February 2nd. Am I mixing the months here? That's next month. Yeah, this is February. There's something else in March 2nd in my calendar. And that's gonna mean going from just mainnet, where in 3 years we've run $200 million in raises for different projects, to like Optimism, Arbitrum, Base, all at once. I'm very curious to see, like, in this new moment of regulatory changes, with this perspective of experimentation on how do we play on top of the acceleration we already created. How do we go from here to now a perspective where we can really experiment very fast? And very excited to see what we can create during this year. But yeah, I'm already like letting my brain go too much here.
Yeah, that's excellent, actually, and those are some excellent points. And one thing I really love that you just said is like with AI and crypto and everything that is going on around the world today is like things are speeding up regardless if we are with that or not, or if we are pushing or not. But the main thing we should focus is like, how do we not make it suck? So when we get there, and on the way we have fun. Like that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun. It's been a very, very interesting exploring a bit of the thoughts here with you. Appreciate the good questions and covering so many different areas. I see you really read those articles because you're pointing here and there. I really appreciate the invite and everyone who's there listening to us. And yeah, thank you.
And for anyone that actually wants to read Zeugh's work, like I'm gonna link the articles in the description actually. So you can dive in even deeper on the topics that we just talked about today.